FBI. We are working every day to restore the public's trust. We hope that today is a significant step towards.
The United States was ruled by politicians who fought only for insiders, illegal aliens, career criminals, corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations.
5:47 a.m. Chicago, Illinois. The fog rolling off Lake Michigan is thick enough to taste metallic, cold, clinging to the glass towers of downtown like a shroud. Most of the city is still asleep. But on the 11th floor of Chicago City Hall, sleep is about to become a distant memory. 43 federal agents, FBI, DEA, Homeland Security investigations, move through the marble corridors like shadows given form. Their boots are silent on polished stone. Body armor beneath windbreakers. Earpieces crackling with encrypted traffic. They've rehearsed this operation 17 times in a warehouse in Gary, Indiana. Every door. Every corner. Every potential choke point. At exactly 5:47 a.m. they breach. Not with battering rams. This isn't some cartel safe house in Juarez. This is the office of the mayor's senior policy advisor for community outreach and immigrant affairs. The locks are picked in seconds. Agents flood into a suite of offices that smell like expensive coffee and old money. What they find in the next 4 hours will shake Chicago to its foundation and expose a narcotics pipeline so sophisticated, so audacious, it makes Pablo Escobar look like a street corner dealer. 9 tons of fentanyl precursors. $950 million in laundered proceeds. A sanctuary city policy weaponized into a shield for the deadliest drug network America has ever seen. This is the story of Operation Frozen Harbor. And it started 6 months earlier with a dead college student and a text message that should never have existed. April 22nd. Northwestern University, Evanston. Emily Vasquez was 19 years old. Pre-med, Dean's List every semester. She volunteered at a free clinic on the South Side every Saturday. Her parents had emigrated from Guatemala, worked double shifts for 15 years to give her a chance at the American dream. On April 22nd, she took what she thought was Adderall to study for her organic chemistry final. A friend of a friend had sold it to her for $20. The pill was pressed in a warehouse in Pilsen. It contained enough fentanyl to kill 5 people. Emily's roommate found her at 3 a.m. blue-lipped and cold. The paramedics worked on her for 42 minutes. It didn't matter. She was already gone. DEA Special Agent Marcus Chin caught the case as part of a broader overdose investigation. Routine at first. Another tragic statistic in an epidemic that had already claimed over 100,000 American lives that year. But when Chin subpoenaed Emily's phone records, he found something that made his blood run cold. The friend of a friend, who sold her the pill, had texted from a number registered to a shell company called Midwest Community Advocates LLC. Not unusual, dealers use burner phones, fake identities. But when Chin ran Midwest Community Advocates through the federal database, he found something extraordinary. The company had received $4.7 million in city grants over the past 18 months. Grants approved personally by the mayor's office. Grants for immigrant integration services and community health outreach. Chin sat in his cubicle at the DEA field office in Chicago, staring at his computer screen and thought, what the hell is going on here? May through August. The investigation. What began as a single overdose death metastasized into the largest multi-agency task force in Chicago's history. FBI Financial Crimes. DEA Narcotics. HSI Border Enforcement. IRS Criminal Investigation. 62 agents working in complete secrecy out of a nondescript office building in Schaumburg. They called it Operation Frozen Harbor, and what they uncovered was an industrial-scale poisoning operation masquerading as social services. The structure was elegant in its simplicity, brilliant in its ruthlessness. At the top, Abdirahman Abdi Khalif, Senior Policy Advisor to the Mayor for Community Outreach and Immigrant Affairs. Age 41. Somali immigrant, naturalized citizen. By day he appeared at press conferences, advocating for sanctuary city protections, expanded social services, pathway to citizenship. He gave interviews to progressive media outlets about compassionate governance. He received awards from nonprofit organizations. By night, according to intercepted communications, he ran a criminal enterprise that would make the Sinaloa cartel envious. The operation worked like this. Step 1, the chemical pipeline. Industrial chemical companies in Hubei province, China, legitimate businesses on paper, manufactured fentanyl precursors. Compounds like 4-ANPP, NPP, 4-AP. Not illegal in China. Not controlled substances. Just specialty chemicals for industrial research. These precursors were shipped to the port of Long Beach in containers labeled as water treatment additives and polymer processing agents. Customs inspectors, overwhelmed by volume, over 16,000 containers arriving daily, couldn't possibly check everything. The shipments cleared without incident. Step 2. The Sanctuary Shield. Once in the United States, the precursors were transported to Chicago in semi-trucks operated by freight companies owned by shell corporations. Ghost companies with names like New Horizon Logistics and American Gateway Transport. The trucks arrived in Chicago, where sanctuary city policies created a unique environment. Because Chicago had declared itself a sanctuary city, local law enforcement was prohibited from cooperating with ICE on immigration matters. This policy, intended to protect undocumented residents from deportation, had been weaponized. Khalif had helped draft portions of the policy language himself. The chemicals were stored in warehouses in immigrant neighborhoods where ICE raids were politically impossible. Where local police had been instructed not to ask about immigration status. Where the community had been taught to distrust federal authorities. It was a closed loop. A perfect hiding place in plain sight. Step 3. The Conversion Labs. The precursors were moved to conversion labs, not in abandoned buildings or rural compounds, but in ordinary commercial spaces. A shipping facility in back of the yards. A former meatpacking plant in Pilsen. A warehouse in Little Village. These weren't crude meth labs. These were sophisticated chemical operations staffed by trained chemists. Some recruited from China, others from Mexico, a few from American universities who'd been offered salaries that made their student loans disappear overnight. They converted the precursors into finished fentanyl. Industrial quantities. In a single month, according to wiretap evidence, one lab produced 847 kilograms of pure fentanyl. Enough lethal doses to kill 423 million people. Enough to eliminate half the population of North America. Step 4. The Distribution Network. The finished product was distributed through networks connected to the Sinaloa and Jalisco New Generation cartels. Mexican transnational criminal organizations with distribution channels stretching from Tijuana to Toronto. They pressed the fentanyl into counterfeit pills, fake Percocet, fake Xanax, fake Adderall, and flooded American streets. Every overdose. Every grieving parent. Every funeral for someone who thought they were just taking a pill to study or sleep or ease their pain. Every single one traced back to this pipeline. Step 5. The Money Laundering. The profits, hundreds of millions of dollars, flowed back through the same channels, disguised as legitimate business revenue. This is where the genius truly revealed itself. Midwest Community Advocates LLC and dozens of similar shell companies would receive city grants for community services. They'd bill the city for consulting fees, program management, outreach coordination. Invoices approved by Khalif's office. Checks signed by bureaucrats who never asked questions. The grant money mixed with drug proceeds, creating a river of seemingly clean money that could be wired to Chinese banks, Mexican financial institutions, offshore accounts in the Caymans. Layered, structured, disguised. The city of Chicago was unwittingly laundering money for a transnational drug syndicate. September 18th. The breakthrough. The case broke wide open on September 18th when HSI agents intercepted a shipping container at the port of Long Beach. Random inspection. 1 in 10,000. Inside, beneath legitimate cargo of industrial rubber gaskets, they found 340 kilograms of 4-ANPP powder. Street value after conversion, approximately $680 million. The shipping manifest listed the recipient as New Horizon Logistics, Chicago, Illinois. The payment had been wired from an account owned by Midwest Community Advocates LLC. Agent Chin ran the account records. Over the past 3 years, Midwest Community Advocates had received $14.2 million in city grants. The company had 2 employees on paper. No office. No website. No operational history before receiving its first grant. When the task force raided the registered address, a mailbox store in Evanston, they found nothing. A ghost company. But the financial trails led everywhere. Wire transfers to banks in Shenzhen. Cash deposits in Ciudad Juarez. Cryptocurrency exchanges converting dollars to Bitcoin to yuan. Real estate purchases in Nairobi, Kenya, Khalif's ancestral homeland. Luxury cars. Private school tuition for Khalif's children. A lake house in Wisconsin. The surveillance began. Cameras. Wiretaps. Undercover agents posing as truckers, warehouse workers, community organizers. The task force watched Khalif attend city hall meetings by day and make encrypted phone calls to numbers in China and Mexico by night. They watched chemists in white coats carrying duffel bags into warehouses at 2 a.m. They watched semi-trucks with falsified manifests rolling through immigrant neighborhoods where police had been told not to look too closely. They watched the mayor himself. No evidence he knew about the drug operation, but his policies had created the perfect environment for it, cutting ribbons at community centers funded by grant money that had originated as fentanyl profits. The institutional betrayal was complete. November 14, 5:47 a.m. The raids. When the agents breached Khalif's City Hall office that cold November morning, they found a treasure trove. Encrypted phones. Ledgers detailing shipments from China. Cryptocurrency wallet keys. Lists of warehouse locations. Financial records showing $950 million in laundered proceeds over 38 months. In Khalif's desk drawer, a burner phone with WhatsApp messages to a contact saved as Beijing 1. The messages discussed shipments, product quality, distribution timing. In another drawer, a thumb drive containing spreadsheets tracking fentanyl production by lab, by month, by purity percentage. Simultaneously, at exactly 5:47 a.m., agents hit 11 other locations. The conversion labs. The warehouses. Khalif's $2.3 million home in Oak Park. At the Pilsen warehouse, they found 6,200 kilograms of fentanyl precursors and 187 kilograms of finished fentanyl. Enough lethal doses to kill 93.5 million people. Stacked in boxes labeled agricultural supplements. At the back of the yard's facility they found 2 chemists, one Chinese national, one Mexican national, in the middle of a conversion run. Beakers bubbling. Industrial mixers running. The chemists surrendered without resistance. One of them was wearing a Northwestern University class ring. PhD in organic chemistry. Student loans paid off 18 months earlier. At Khalif's house, his wife answered the door in a bathrobe. She claimed to know nothing. Agents found $840,000 in cash vacuum sealed in the basement. Rolex watches. Deeds to properties in 3 countries. A folder labeled Emergency Exit, containing fake passports for the entire family, with travel booked to Mogadishu for November 21st. Khalif himself was arrested at City Hall without incident. No gunfire. No dramatic confrontation. Just a 41-year-old man in a tailored suit, hands zip-tied behind his back, being led past portraits of Chicago mayors dating back to the 1800s. The look on his face, according to agents present, was one of absolute shock. As if he genuinely believed he was untouchable. November 14, 2:30 p.m. The press conference. By afternoon, the story had exploded across every news outlet in America. FBI Director and DEA Administrator at a joint press conference in Washington, D.C. The numbers were staggering. 9 tons of fentanyl precursors seized. 187 kilograms of finished fentanyl. Enough lethal doses to kill 93.5 million Americans. $950 million in laundered proceeds. 17 arrests across 3 states. Connections to Chinese chemical manufacturers and Mexican cartels. A senior city official using sanctuary city policies as cover for industrial-scale drug trafficking. The human cost was incalculable. Investigators estimated that fentanyl produced through this pipeline had contributed to at least 4,700 overdose deaths across the Midwest in the past year alone. Emily Vasquez was just one name on a list that filled 62 pages. Each name was a person. A daughter. A son. Someone's everything. The conspiracy unveiled. As the investigation continued, the full scope emerged. This wasn't just a Chicago problem. It was a national security threat. The Chinese companies supplying the precursors operated with tacit approval from Beijing. The CCP strategy of weaponizing fentanyl against American communities, flooding the United States with chemicals that would be converted into poison, weakening the country from within. Chemical warfare disguised as commerce. The Mexican cartels provided distribution networks refined over decades of cocaine and methamphetamine trafficking. The Sinaloa cartel. Jalisco New Generation. Organizations with more firepower than some national militaries, with corruption networks reaching into every level of Mexican government. And Khalif, the enabler. The man who'd taken an idealistic policy meant to protect vulnerable immigrants and corrupted it into a shield for mass murder. Who'd sat in meetings about community health while people died from the poison he helped import. The institutional betrayal went deeper. How had this gone on for 3 years without detection? How had millions in grant money been approved without oversight? How had shipping containers full of precursors cleared customs? The answer, investigators concluded, was bureaucratic blindness. Overworked customs agents. City officials who rubber-stamped grant applications. A political environment where questioning sanctuary city policies was considered racist. A system so complex, so fragmented, that a sophisticated criminal could exploit the gaps. December. The aftermath. Khalif sat in federal detention awaiting trial on 47 counts. Drug trafficking, money laundering, conspiracy, wire fraud. No bail. His attorneys filed motions arguing entrapment, procedural errors, constitutional violations. None of it mattered. The evidence was overwhelming. The mayor of Chicago held a press conference claiming he'd been deceived and betrayed. He ordered a full audit of city grants, a review of sanctuary city policy implementation, cooperation with federal authorities on criminal matters while maintaining immigration protections. But the damage was done. Chicago's reputation was shattered. Sanctuary city policies across the country came under renewed scrutiny. The political backlash was immediate and severe. Meanwhile, in China, the chemical companies continued operating. New shell companies emerged. The precursors still flowed. In Mexico, the cartels adapted. New routes, new distributors, new chemists. The pipeline had been disrupted, not destroyed. For every Khalif arrested, how many others remained unknown? For every lab raided, how many operated in shadows? The victims we forget. Emily Vasquez never got to graduate. Never got to become the doctor she dreamed of being. Never got to save the lives she would have saved. Her parents buried her on a sunny Saturday in April. Her mother collapsed at the graveside. Her father stood silent, broken, staring at a coffin that held 19 years of hopes and dreams turned to ash. Emily is one of 107,000 Americans who died from drug overdoses last year. Most involved fentanyl. Industrial-scale poisoning. A weapon of mass destruction delivered in pills that looked like medicine. And the people responsible, from the chemists in Hubei province to the bureaucrats who approved fraudulent grants to the politicians who created environments where criminals could hide, most will never face justice. The system is too complex. The problem too vast. The profits too enormous. Today. As you read this, shipping containers are arriving at American ports. Some contain legitimate goods. Some contain death disguised as industrial chemicals. As you read this, chemists are working in labs across America, converting precursors into fentanyl that will kill people tomorrow, next week, next month. As you read this, corrupt officials in city halls and state capitals are approving grants, signing checks, creating policies that criminals will exploit. The war on fentanyl is a war America is losing. Not because we lack the resources or the capability, but because we lack the will. Because bureaucracy moves slowly and criminals move fast. Because political correctness prevents asking hard questions. Because the enemy, the Chinese Communist Party, the Mexican cartels, the corrupt enablers in our own communities, understands that America's openness is also its weakness. Operation Frozen Harbor was a victory. 9 tons of poison off the streets. A corrupt official behind bars. Hundreds of millions in blood money seized. But it's a drop in an ocean. The pipeline continues. The precursors flow. The death toll rises. Emily Vasquez took a pill to study for an exam and never woke up. How many more before we acknowledge the existential threat at our doorstep? This isn't a crime story. This is a national emergency. This is institutional betrayal. This is industrial-scale murder masquerading as policy compassion. And it's happening right now, in your city, in your community, to people you know. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Tap the like button if you believe sanctuary city policies need immediate federal oversight. Comment and know more if you demand mandatory death penalties for fentanyl traffickers. Share this story if you think every American needs to understand the Chinese cartel pipeline poisoning our communities. The algorithm suppresses content like this. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to see the connections. They don't want you asking questions about who profits from America's overdose epidemic. But you know now. You've seen the evidence. You understand the scope. Emily Vasquez deserved better. The 107,000 who died last year deserve better. The thousands who will die this year deserve better. Demand accountability. Demand transparency. Demand that your elected officials choose American lives over political correctness. Before it's your daughter, your son, your neighbor, your friend. Before the next